Do any of you guys have any games that you continuously played or at least keep coming back to even though they might be over a decade old? Kind of like, I would say, evergreen games, like just games that even though they age, you keep playing them, and even if you get new games, you still keep going back to those games. Let me know down below in the comments what games you continuously play or keep coming back to. But with that being said, hey everyone, my name is Poisonblade. I hope all of you are doing well today. And today we're building a mistake. No, actually we're building a underwater or at least submerged lounge, which was supposed to be a food court, but I made it too fancy, and maybe I shouldn't get inspired by reference pictures of lounges if I want to make a food court. But yeah, we're building a submerged or underwater lounge right smack dab in the middle of a beaver habitat, with an interesting bridge going into the lounge as well. And yes, again, this was supposed to be a food court. Didn't turn out that way, did it, Poison? But anyways, before we get started with the video, don't forget to hit the like button and don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you want to see more. So let's get started with this mistake. Alright, so yes, this was supposed to be a food court, but I wanted it to be like really just sleek and modern and such. This is one of those buildings or builds that I had the reference picture on my Pinterest board since the start of EveZoo, and I finally got to build it. But yeah, it definitely turned out to be way more fancy than I originally thought it was going to be, for whatever reason. Maybe just because I like, well, I was going to say like dingy things, but I mean this lounge is definitely not dingy. For some reason also just like having those hanging lights, or not, how do you properly say this, like the light or the LED tubes that the Europack gave us, making those like hanging lights for some reason makes things fancy for me. I don't know why. It's like legitimately just that light makes it look fancy, like the way that I use them. I don't know why. It's just some kind of connection that my brain makes to like, oh, these lights, ooh, fancy. Anyways, so yes, this build was originally not going to be in the water. Well, actually the reference wasn't in the water. The reference was also kind of different in shape. My build is round, the reference was more oval shaped. As you can see, there's like this inner ring which is going to be a courtyard, but that was off center. And yeah, I already knew like, oh, I'm going to put this in the water. I don't need more headaches when I need to put it into the water. Need to somehow make it so that it's completely like surrounded with water and have a path going into this building. So I immediately thought like, yeah, I'm not going to make this oval shape because that's going to be more difficult, and I already know that this building is going to be slightly a headache. So yeah, I didn't really do that. But then this building isn't as realistic. Well, EveZoo in general is like, it's slightly realistic, but if something looks prettier, if I take away a little bit of realism, I will do that. So yes, in this building you would suffocate. There's no air conditioning or anything because I made this like nice, sleek, just wide roof, and I didn't want to build like air conditioning vents or any other kind of vent like for like the food court, like chimneys for like the kitchens or anything, although you don't really see any kitchens in this food court. I imagine that the food just gets brought here and then here it's kept like warm. But yeah, I didn't go for ultimate realism here. But I don't really do that in anything in EveZoo. If something looks prettier when I take away a little bit of realism, I will do that. But anyways, let's get back onto the initial question of today, because I stopped buying as many games when I really realized like, oh, I have a handful of games that I keep coming back to, and all of these games that I will mention are like over or around a decade old, and I keep coming back to them. But then I'm also just a person of patterns or routines. Like I need to get up at a certain point, otherwise I am just sort of a zombie the entire day. I need to go to sleep at a certain point, otherwise yeah, otherwise I'm not really a zombie, otherwise I just turn into grumpy Poison. or I just fall asleep, or at least like mentally fall asleep, but physically I'm still awake. When it comes to exercising, it's also kind of the same, where like if I, for whatever reason, which is actually usually when I injure myself, stop exercising for a bit, I need to constantly remind myself of like, Poison, you need to start exercising again, because otherwise I will just stop. Like a lot of times well, this is also just because I'm an all or nothing kind of person. Like I need to keep making the exercises harder, because otherwise I will get bored. But then the side effect is that you can get quite intense muscle aches to the point where you can't really move a limb, mostly my arms or legs. I've done a lot of penguin walks where I just couldn't really put full pressure on my legs, which was funny. Like penguin walks or duck walks. It's funny to like sort of wiggle around like that. Not really wiggle, but like, I mean, we all know how penguin walks. Just imagine a person doing that. But yeah, also when I once just jammed a dumbbell into my leg. I didn't break skin, but I was definitely bleeding. It definitely swelled up and I walked funny for a week. Who would have known that jamming a dumbbell into your leg would be a bad thing? It was an accident though, before anyone starts wondering like, hey, is Poison intentionally injuring himself? No, I was doing an exercise. I went a little bit, I think, too crazy, and then I just smacked the dumbbell into my leg. It was fun. Well, not fun, but funnily enough, I kept exercising. I was just like, I can still go on. Yes, it feels a little bit funny, like that, like pins and needles kind of feeling, but I can still keep going. So, jammed the dumbbell into my leg and just kept going. Kept doing the same exercise as well. At this point, I am legitimately just asking to get injured, I think, with the way I exercise. But anyways, when it comes to games, I'm also just a person of patterns where I just keep going back to certain games, and especially with like the games that I'm going to talk about, well, it's kind of like two groups of games. Games that I will play basically whenever, that I will keep coming back to, and games that I will play for like a month or 2 months straight and then not touch again for like half a year. The latter of which is Anno 1800, Crusader Kings 2, and Gold Wars 2. Those are games that I will play for like 2 months straight and then not touch again for like 6 months. And the games that I continuously go back to are, well, Plan Zoo of course, but then also Europa Universalis 4 and Smite. And to briefly explain all of these games for people who don't know about these games, I mean, I don't think I need to explain Planet Zoo. You're watching Planet Zoo right now, so I think I don't need to explain that one. But Europa Universalis 4, think Total War, but less attention spent on like actual battles and more on like the entire war and just keeping your country, kingdom, or empire together. Smite is, I would very like just easily try to sum it up, and this is not the best sum up, but think League of Legends, but then instead of playing like some hero or anything, you're playing as Artemis or Zeus. Yes, I'm also quickly going to mention here that I am the asshole who plays Daji, which is basically teleport onto another player or onto the enemy and be able to almost 2-hit kill them. With a full build, of course, but also sometimes without. But I just like the chaos. Like teleporting onto like a squishy god like Vulcan or Zeus, and then like throwing their entire kit onto you, but you kill them in 2 hits. Like just seeing the chaos. But then I also like playing Hera, because you can just drop Argus onto somebody and it's just like, yeah, you're dead. I like playing gods in Smite that just cause chaos. I don't think that's a surprise to anyone who's been watching me for some time. But funnily enough, I don't like playing Discordia, who is legitimately, I think, the goddess of chaos, or just discord and strife. I don't like playing her for some reason, but I like playing Hera just because I can drop a legitimately like Argus, who I constantly just mentally think of as like a mech suit, onto another player. It's fun. Dodge is also just fun because you can just chain people to your ball. Bala. I'm not going to pronounce whatever her ultimate is correctly. But anyways, that's Smite, and then you Guild Wars 2, probably most underrated MMO ever. And then you have Crusader Kings, which, well, it's basically Alabama Simulator. Or at least that's like the running joke with it, because like incest is a thing in that game. So yeah, if you play or have played Crusader Kings 1 or 2, like at one point you will have fucked your sister or mother or father or all of them. It's just a running joke with that game, but of course all of the things that I mentioned when it comes to Crusader Kings is in that game. Don't start trying to play Alabama Simulator in real life, alright, guys? But then the other one, I mean, Anno 1800, I think is not that, like, doesn't need that much of an explanation either. Build city in the 1800s, that's it. Anyways, going back to Europa Universalis 4, because there's just, that's a game that is, I just keep going back to, but I also, like, this is a pattern in a pattern actually. I can't play as any other nation than a nation that can reform the Byzantine Empire. I've tried playing as like a Dutch country trying to form the Netherlands. Didn't enjoy it as much. Tried playing other countries because in Europa Universalis you play as a country, of course, or like a nation. And anything besides a nation that can reform the Byzantine Empire, I just don't enjoy as much as a nation that can reform the Byzantine Empire. And I will go out of my way to just like turn any nation that I can find into a nation that can reform the Byzantine Empire. I don't know what my obsession with the Byzantine Empire is. It's only in game. Like, I don't want to reform the Byzantine Empire in real life. Greece and Turkey can be just very, like, you know, can chill out. I don't want to reform the Byzantine Empire, but yeah, whenever it comes to playing Europa Universalis 4, keep reforming the Byzantine Empire. Don't know why, really. Like, I once even tried to like play as like an play a nation that could reform the Persian Empire, and again, didn't enjoy it as much. Don't know why I keep reforming the Byzantine Empire. I also, for some reason, just always dislike Poland. At least in that game. For some reason, I always eventually go to war with Poland. Yeah. Again, all of this is in game. I don't go to war with Poland in real life. But then again, squirrel world domination is much more fun. We have already kind of, well, yeah, we have actually had around 60% of the world leaders changed with squirrels. Or have had them, wait, is this mic still on? World domination by squirrels by this point is inevitable, so have fun with your squirrel overlords. Around 60% to 70% of your world leaders have already been replaced with squirrels. We are going to rule the world, so say hi to your squirrel overlords. Don't give them too many peanuts. Maybe give them chocolate. We've already captured a lot of other people as well. Squirrel world domination. It's a thing. I probably shouldn't have said as much. Anyway, let's go back to the video. So, yeah. Where are we when it comes to the build? I mean, I think I'm building the Beaver Den or Lodge right now. Which is legitimately just sticks. A lot of sticks. And the fun thing when it comes to this build was, in a way it doesn't make sense, because this is a lake, and beavers, from what I read, only make dams when there's like a little bit of like current, or like if it's like in a river and there's like flowing water. If it's like standing water in the case of like a lake, they usually don't need to build a dam, but I mean, you can't build a beaver habitat without building a dam. That's just, you know, if you don't do that, you're evil, and I don't trust you. But yeah, when it comes to this build, I really like it's completely sorted out of like, oh, I want this and I want that. And then, funny enough, my brain was just like, the reason it took a week for me to build this is because my brain was just like, yeah, you want inspiration for this build? Nah, think about like an American section for Eve Zoo, or an Asian section, or an African section. I'm very much like intrigued by like the ideas that I have for like an Asian section to Eve Zoo, where I really want this like futuristic, stereotypical Asian look. Yes, it's going to be very stereotypical, but then, you know, it's either Japanese or Chinese, but like when I don't know how to fully explain that one, but it's but then again with like the American section, it's also like going to be kind of stereotypical. I'm thinking of like Route 66. I wanted to go Route 69, but I am more mature than that, slightly. But yeah, with American section, I'm just like thinking of like just say, what is the word for it? Road journey. I've lost the word for it. One of you guys will remind me of it, but just, you know, you go into a car, get into your car and just drive for 6 hours and end up in the same states. I keep forgetting how large the US is. Also, yes, the American section is just going to be the US, because we constantly forget Canada. Anyways, so yeah, let me know what games you guys continuously go back to, because I would love to know, because for some reason with me, it's always like, I will keep going back to Europa Universalis 4. I will keep going back to Smite. Like, Smite is just a game that, if I have like an hour to spare, I have nothing really to do, I don't have inspiration for any builds, I will play just a round of Smite. Because, again, I love just teleporting onto gods or just causing chaos. I'd love to see chaos for some reason. Now the ends thing also makes sense. I just love to see chaos. Not, well, actually, Smite I do cause the chaos. But the ends I also cause the chaos. Yeah, how did I not turn into the next Hannibal Lecter is always going to be a surprise. Or surprise, always going to make me wonder. Anyway, so for the bridge going into the actual lounge, yeah, this one was something that changed forms quite a lot of times. Not like as in building, like I built only one bridge because no matter if it's Keanu Bashar or if it's like a fantasy build or a futuristic, realistic build, I still don't like building bridges. So I need to make sure that they are interesting enough so that my attention keeps drawn to it. So this bridge is basically, well, it's not really a replica, but it's definitely inspired by the Erasmus Bridge in Rotterdam. And for those who don't know, well, it's basically the most iconic bridge, I would say, in Rotterdam. And I also think that if this bridge ever gets closed, that's going to cause World War III. Because the entire city of Rotterdam will just be completely just down when it comes to traffic. Anyway, yeah, so building this bridge was fun, and especially when it comes to like Lakeside and Central. Like Central is basically the starter area for Eve Zoo, and Lakeside as well, this area. But they're all very like Dutch centric. Like I really want to have it so that it looks very like areas you would find in the Netherlands. All the other sections, like as I said, the futuristic sci-fi Asian section and such, are going to be like not inspired by the Netherlands, of course. It's going to be completely different. But with Lakeside and Central, I really just wanted Netherlands and then like sort of the highlights of the Netherlands. So yeah, that's also why Lakeside is not really what you would think of probably with Lakeside, because most of it so far is kind of swampy. But I really like that, to just have Lakeside but then have it basically be a swamp. I just wanted a bit of a change of how things looked, and Lakeside is doing that so far. Also, yes, the like beams or the cables holding this bridge were annoying to build. But I am going to be building more cable bridges because the next build I've already almost finished, and it's having another cable bridge. I mean, I need to either keep the building interesting or I need to make it a torture. for myself so that I keep building it. At least when it comes to bridges. But anyways, that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to hit the like button and don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you did enjoy it. There's also the notification button, but that one is just as broken as my upload schedule lately. And let me know down below in the comments what games you could seriously go back to, what for you guys are like sort of the evergreen games, because I've already mentioned mine, but I would love to see your guys' evergreen games, or just the games that, even though they might be over a decade old, you keep coming back to. And with that being said, I wish all of you an amazing day. See you guys!